We're live. What's up, y'all? So this is not exactly the live that I wanted to do. Um, the Omarion variant, the Omarion variant has played a little bit of havoc in the last couple of weeks. What we were planning to do over Christmas break for the kids. I was hoping to have some time to take in and have some reflections on the Matrix movie as well as the new Spider-Man joint. I haven't watched either one of them yet, so my takes on those are going to be a little bit delayed. But I do want to get into the habit of the new year of doing coming on live and getting back into the podcasting thing. And the only way that I know how to make a habit out of something is forcing myself to do it. So today we're going to have a conversation about um, a discussion that happened that I kind of participated in more or less on social media about representation. And it's another talking about representation of black and brown folks in media conversation, but I wanted to kind of give a unique twist on it. So that's what I'm gonna do on today's episode. We're gonna talk about representation. I'll get to you guys after the intro. Peace. Blurting while dad. I'm back. Hopefully you guys had happy holiday season. If you're still celebrating it, that's what's up. If yours is over, I hope you enjoyed yours. We had a little bout with what we think was probably the Omarion. We didn't get tested fast enough. I mean, first it just felt like a cold, and it hit us. It kind of rolled through our house the week right before Christmas, and I'm really at a point just now getting up and getting around. So I wasn't able to do some of the things I was planning over the last couple of weeks regarding specifically getting out to see the new Spider-Man movie or to even sit down and watch the new Matrix because all our week before Christmas was kind of truncated. And so we really didn't have much of time. I didn't have much time for entertainment. But I did want to get into this conversation. And sometimes you have where you are in a debate on social media, and I do this a lot more frequently, where I'm like, I don't even want to type a response to this because the response I'm going to write is going to be verbose. It's going to have a lot of different nuances in it, and it's just going to be too long. And I don't really feel like arguing with somebody about this. But I did want to read what was, what I'm responding to, and then kind of share my thoughts about the representation piece, and even put in some of the comments that I got on it. So basically, I'm not gonna give this dude. I'm not gonna put this dude out here like that on Twitter, but basically, he was tweeting in response, I believe, to the Little Mermaid, the Black Little Mermaid. I'm not sure, but basically, he said audiences don't hate diverse characters. What they hate is being slammed as bigots for rejecting bad work from pretentious, unskilled activists posing as writers. If the demography of your characters becomes more important than the story, your story will probably suck. So I want to get into the first part of what he said and then kind of circle back to the other pieces. Audiences don't hate diverse characters. Is that true? Now, when I said that this is a lie, when I replied back, this is a lie, and pointed out some examples, um, one of the responses basically came back to me saying, well, what about Star Trek Deep Space Nine? They had a black lead. And what about the movie Blade? White folks went out to go see Blade. And what about Black Panther? And those are three specific examples that I keep seeing repeated, especially when we're talking about comic books and sci-fi and diversity within those places. See Blade, Deep Space Nine, um, and Black Panther. So let's start with Blade. There were two black characters in Blade in the main cast. I know Blade's mom was black, but she wasn't exactly in the main cast until the end. But there are two black characters in Blade. Um, Black Panther, I know Everett K. Ross is he is a main character, or not a main character, but he's an important character in the in the Black Panther universe. But in the movie, dude was just kind of slapped in there. And then Deep Space Nine, if I remember correctly, and it's been a while since I've sat down and watched any episodes of that, there were two brothers on that ship, and if we're not, I'm not counting Worf, but one of the points I made was a lot of times when we talk about black and brown representation in movies, when I say audiences hate diverse characters or diverse casts, I'm not saying diverse audiences hate diverse casts. I'm saying it seems to be a lot of white audiences don't exactly appreciate diverse casts. Typically, when a character that they in their head canon is white gets swapped out for black, there's always an uproar. Um, there have been multiple cases and multiple stories of people who have written black movies that have majority black or brown cast and feeling the studio pressure to shoehorn in a white character. Um, Eddie Murphy, they had mentioned this in Coming to America. They had to shove in Louis Anderson's character. He didn't really have anything to do. They just shoved him in there just so that it wasn't an all black cast. Um, there's always been this rumbling in Hollywood that if it's a black cast or a cast where, I'm not just saying, I know that there are other casts that are just black, but we're talking about black folks. When it's just a black cast, there's this stigma in Hollywood where white audiences won't connect to it. And a lot of times white audiences kind of end up living up to it. I know Black Panther was supposed to be the outlier, especially in this person's post. They consider Black Panther as the outlier, but I really don't think Black Panther was the outlier. I think the phenomenon of Black Panther was largely pushed by black audiences. We came out en masse and saw it multiple times. And then you had white comic book fans who loved the character of T'Challa, and they came out to see it. But it wasn't like this unity and, oh, we're going to go see it and all this other stuff. It was the black audience really making Black Panther pop culture and making it so that the white audiences wanted to participate in that pop culture. But I don't see it as some equal thing. A lot of times, Hollywood steers away, especially the big budget Hollywood movies. When they drop those movies with all black cast, you'll normally see them pop up around February. February, that's when the black movies can come out. Black, January, February, that's when those majority black cast movies come out. But the reality is, these studios really don't push it the way that they think that they do. And what you get is you'll have white characters kind of shoehorned in to appeal to a a white audience, which I don't think that really works like that. I don't think people went to go white folks didn't go see Coming to America because, or the first Coming to America, because Louis Anderson was in it. They didn't say, oh man, Louis Anderson's in the movie, I got to go check it out now. They really didn't care about that stuff. Um, and so there wasn't enough credence given to black folks being able to tell a compelling story that was mostly centered around black folks. Like I said, Blade was one of two black main characters in the movie, and so yeah, you can have a black main character and maybe even another black person who occupies a space that's not the main character. You may even have two black leads, but everybody else in the movie is going to be white. And I think one of the big things that we run into with this conversation is this: there have been entire movie franchises, TV franchises, that have existed without a single black main character, and nobody said anything. Nobody said, "Well, what about the black audience? Where's the black audience is supposed to connect with?" You know, Seinfeld was a great example of that. Never had never had a black major character or main character on there. It was all white folks. There's still black people that watch Seinfeld. There's still black people that watch Friends. Lord of the Rings. There are black folks that love Lord of the Rings. Weren't really any major black folks in there, unless you're counting the orcs, and I'm not counting the orcs. So it hasn't gone both ways. Black audiences are expected to kind of put away the expectation of representation when it's established that, well, this is just a white universe where black people don't exist in a real capacity. And that's what happens. So to sit up here and say and sit up here and pretend like all things are equal and all audiences show love regardless is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. It's it defies logic. Um, unless you are not counting the fact that there have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of movies made where there hasn't been a black or brown person anywhere in the main cast. Yet black and brown people still want to go see it. So just want to play devil's advocate. All right, so I'm adding a comment in here. And hey, if you just dropped the comment, let me know who it is so I can respond back in kind. But just want to play devil's advocate. When we're only 12 to 13% of the population, you have to play to the larger audience to maximize profit. I'll counter that as a marketer. If you know your audience, if you know your niche audience, and you know there's an audience that you can target specifically, a narrow group like comic book fans, I would say that being 12 to 13% of the population isn't exactly a negative thing. I doubt that, 12 to 13% of the population has seen, has gone out and seen any movie on opening weekend, because that the numbers would be absolutely eye-popping if that was the case. I don't think that's the case as much. I know that movies are movies and commercials and stuff, they're kind of built with audience in mind for them. And so, if you speak and engage the black audience, they're going to come out and see your movies. But you have to play to the larger audience. I don't know if that's the case though, because there are certain movies that will never find a larger audience, but if they speak directly to their niche audience, they're going to be wildly successful. I look at a movie like the Saw franchise. Let's look at that. The Saw franchise isn't that's a movie that the franchise isn't made for most people. It's made for Saw fans. They've identified who those Saw fans are, and they know that those people are uh, super fans of the franchise. They'll come out, they have big parties, they come out at midnight to see it and stuff like that. So I don't know. If they're creating that large. I don't think the larger audience matters as much. And so I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to track this conversation on two fronts here. I don't think that's the case. And I don't know if movie studios make movies specifically for everybody anymore. I just don't see it. Okay, Lorenzo. All right, cool. Thanks for the comment though, bro. I think a lot of times the studios make these movies specifically for a narrow niche of people. And they're trying to trap that niche and get them super hyped about the movie, and hopefully they can use word of mouth to get other people in the door. Now, there are going to be movies that have a wider fan base, but it's still a subgroup of people. Not everybody likes comic book movies. Not everybody likes action movies. Not everybody is into rom-coms. Those are our very specific audiences. Not everybody's a Tyler Perry fan. Tyler Perry is one of those people that has a very I'm not a big fan of his. I'm not a fan of his movies, but he has a very narrow understanding of who his audience is, and he's able to tap into that audience and speak directly to them and make films that they're going to engage with. His movies are formulaic. They all have pretty much the same tropes, but the audience who goes to see Tyler Perry's movies are going to go see Tyler Perry movies regardless. And hopefully the idea is maybe they'll bring some people with him, but he speaks to his audience. So I don't know if that's the case. Making movies, I can't imagine trying to make a movie that's for everybody. When they make a Disney movie, like when they make one of these Disney kids movies, like I'm trying to think of the last one that swept the planet, that like Frozen. Frozen wasn't made for everybody. It was made for a niche of Disney fans. It just had a broader appeal because the Disney fans brought their friends, family. They wouldn't stop singing songs and blah blah blah. And it the legend kind of grew from there. But I don't think they made the movie specifically trying to attract everybody. That's what I'll say on it. I get what you're saying with it though, but maximizing the profit isn't the same thing as appealing to as many people as possible. Because whenever you make a market message, there's always going to be a group of people that aren't your market. And the reality is, especially when you're making something that's artistic or a movie or something that has specific tones and things like that, and is really not geared for everybody. The idea is to get as many of your audience to turn out as possible and not worry about trying to appeal to everybody. So I get it. I appreciate it, but I don't know if that's exactly the case. Now, what I will say is this. Um, I do think that the thinking in some of these Hollywood spots is, well, if we don't have a white character somewhere in here, white folks won't come out and see it. And I already addressed it. I don't think people specifically showed up to say, "Oh man, is Everett is the dude? Are they gonna have somebody playing Everett K. Ross in the Black Panther movie? Man, I need to come out and see him." They're not coming out to see that. You know, they're coming out to see the main character. I don't know specifically. I remember a couple years ago was the Amazing Spider-Man 2 or 1. One was the Lizard, two was Electro. When they cast Jamie Foxx the first time as Electro, I don't think I wasn't super hyped to, man, I gotta go see now Jamie Foxx is Electro. I have to go see this movie. I wanted to see it because of the Spider-Man movie. I didn't really care about the other stuff. When Blade dropped, Blade kind of took everybody by surprise. I think people forget that Blade was a surprise hit because pretty much up until that point, comic book movies were terrible. And I know that there were their outliers like the 89 Batman and stuff, but by and large, comic book movies were terrible. And I'm talking about by standards of like the Dolph Lundgren Punisher, terrible. Like they were bad. And so when Blade dropped, people were surprised that, well, we have a comic book character that nobody, that only a super core audience has heard about, and it's successful. It wasn't predicted to be a hit. It just kind of happened. It was lightning in a bottle. And to hold Blade out there as some kind of representation, I don't think that was the case because, like I said, every other character in Blade was white except, what's the sister's name who was in that movie? Last name was Wright, Bush Wright. I'm trying to remember her name. Anyway, the sister that played kind of the love interest or a Blade or whatnot. Those are the two black folks in the movie. Everybody else was white in that movie. So I don't know if that was actually a good idea of representation. And I know another rabbit hole that people get into, especially when we're arguing with conservatives around the time when Black Panther dropped, when people were like, "This is the first Black Marvel movie," and people pointed out Blade. I think they missed the point of this is the first Marvel movie that is led by where the main cast is black, the lead is black, the director is black, the writers are black, where it's pretty much black all up and down the board. And that was significant. And I think when we use a Blade as an example of something that existed before Black Panther, I do think we need to keep that in mind. So anyway, let me go on to the next part of this statement here. More or less, it was saying that a lot of the people that use race and stuff are just activists. I want to get his exact quote, so I'm pulling it up here. But more or less, they said they're just, the way he put it was, audiences don't hate diverse characters. We already discussed that. What they hate is being slammed as bigots for rejecting bad work for pretentious, unskilled activists posing as writers. The creative world is revolutionary. Many of the best creative writers on the planet who have existed throughout history were also considered activists. Daring to write things that hadn't been written about society, daring to photograph things that depicted society in a specific way, daring to film and record things, and say things that challenged what society considered polite conversation or acceptable conversation in a public sense. One of the things that sticks out in my mind is just because I'm listening because it's one of my favorite books, but there's plenty of out there. I remember the spook who sat by the door. That was considered subversive, and dangerous, and it was a work of fiction that incorporated some things that were actually happening in the world, but it was considered dangerous. Um, dangerous when the movie was being made, to the point that people didn't want to finance the movie. And, there are talks about this movie's been actually banned. I don't know. I can't name off the top of my head how many theaters officially banned the spook was set by the door, but I'd wager that there's probably a good amount that just decided not to show it. And so the idea that writers and creators are supposed to be neutral figures, in a time when there is social upheaval and social injustice, is asinine. It's ridiculous. It's ahistorical. It's not backed up by any real fact. This is somebody's objective opinion about, writing and creating is supposed to be this neutral front where we're all equal, and it's really not. Some of the most important literary work that has sparked the embers of revolution for a lot of people started out as works of fiction that intersected with the real world. So to say that people are activists pretending to be writers, to me seems to be a disservice to the creators. But and I think that's one of the things that we as a creative society and the people that do create, I think that's one thing that we've kind of forgotten. We allow people to get on these public airwaves and get on social media and say, why has this got to be political? And to be a Black creator, when you're Black, your life is politicized. That's the bottom line. Let's be honest with you. Black existence is political. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you steer away from that content in your writing. Your existence in and of itself is political, because your rights as a human being are up for legislation every 4 years. Your existence is up for legislation every 4 years, or every 6 years, or every time a new Supreme Court justice is sworn in, or anytime a new mayor gets elected. Your existence, these things actually may have detrimental consequences to your being, and you have no control over it. Black life is politicized. If you want to see people take a neutral conversation and instantly make it political, have a Black person say it. Watch how political it gets. Watch how quickly it gets political, I should say. There are many people out there, and I'm doing this to a select. I'm showing this. I'm doing this live for a select audience of people, but there are lots of people out there who may see me saying something they don't like and see what I look like, and decide that it should be over for me. That I deserve any sort of violence that their mind can conjure up because I don't agree with them, because I look different and I don't agree with them. It is what it is. So the idea that specifically a Black writer can disassociate themselves from politics, is ridiculous. And I'm not even saying that all of our writings have to be necessarily political. What I'm saying is society will politicize whatever message you put in there. So I don't think that these writers are being activists trying to shoehorn messages in. I think that they're creators basically trying to retell some experiences that they may have had. And to be honest with you, this seems kind of extra as a response to the Black Little Mermaid. And unfortunately, it's a brother that's saying this. So we ain't all there. We ain't all in the same place, and that's good. There's, Black life isn't a monolith. Black existence, we're not monolithic in what we believe. If the demography of your characters becomes important to the story, your story will probably suck. Let's look at August Wilson's Fences. Let's look at the color purple. Beloved. I hate 12 Years. I didn't like 12 Years a Slave, but let's look at it. Was the demography of the characters in those stories important to the overall story? Did it matter? I think it did, because it provided context for what was happening. And see, that is one of the things where I say Black life is politicized. Black folks are existence is politicized just by virtue of existing. Um, when we have stories that are written by white folks with a white majority cast, specifically for white folks, a lot of times the demography isn't an important consideration, because in this society, we're conditioned to assume, and I'm saying this is not just white folks, it's not just Black folks, it's everybody. The whole society is conditioned to see everybody as the default color of white. Every story is filtered through a white lens. Um, every situation is filtered through white experience. And anything outside of that, where it tries to reframe the lens from a different frame of experience or frame of reference, is seen as othered. It seems, like it's something alien or foreign. And so when we talk about, the demography of who's in the story, sometimes for a lot of stories and a lot of very important works of literature, the demography is important. Look at it like this. If you were telling the story of Joan of Arc, um, and you're trying to do a historically accurate story retelling of what happened with Joan of Arc, um, and we wanted to include the actual things that happened, the actual people that were involved, you would have to include some French folk. That the demography matters, and so to say that if the demography matters, it's a weak story, I think that's kind of a cop out. I really do. I feel like that's a cop out. So I'm reading the whole thing in context one more time for those that are joining us. Um, the quote is, audiences don't hate diverse characters. We've established that that is not true. Um, I would say that diverse audiences don't hate diverse characters, but non-diverse characters or audiences where the default is white, they do hate diverse characters. So audiences don't hate diverse characters, not true. What they hate is being slammed as bigots for rejecting bad work from pretentious, unskilled activists posing as writers. Um, the creative, the great minds in the creative space were also activists of their time. Don't get it twisted. If the demography of your characters becomes more important than the story, then your story will probably suck. There are so many stories that are defined by the demography of the characters. And the only reason the story even works is because of the context provided by the demography of the characters. That statement is false. And I feel like this is another one. And like I said, I'm not listing the brother's name. I'm not going to air him out like that. But I do feel like this is another one of those where some Black creative person or some Black nerd like I am feels the need to take the other side just because. just to not anger his white friends or whatnot, instead of saying, well, sometimes that stuff does matter, or you guys are really blowing some of this stuff out of proportion with the reactions. And I think, like I said, think this came from the Little Mermaid, if I'm not mistaken. I think I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking the context of the statement. I'm thinking this came from the Black Little Mermaid, but this seems to be a defense of the subgroup of white nerds that make life impossible for anybody who's not a white nerd. It feels like a weird defense of it. I know I could be getting the context wrong, but that's what it really feels like. Like I said, I think that we are so biased to everything being white that we ignore what other audiences may think. I think in a lot of studios' minds, the only audiences that matter are the white audiences, even if we're talking about stories that center black folks. They're worried about how the white audience is going to perceive it. Um, and I think that there's plenty of examples of modern cinema and modern television where the consideration didn't go the other way. They didn't sit around and think about what are black folks going to think about X, Y, and Z. What are the black audience? How are they going to receive? I know off the top of my head, like a Twilight. What are black audiences going to think about Twilight? The movie series where there weren't really any black characters. I think they had like one. They didn't really consider us. So that's all I got. Hopefully, I can get. I'm gonna try to get the Matrix in this week. I got a lot coming up starting on Wednesday, so I'm gonna try to get the Matrix in, the new Matrix joint in. I'm hearing a lot of negative reviews about it, but I still got to see it myself. So I'm gonna check it out and have my take on it. Um, I'm gonna be doing some non-live content, and I'll be posting I'll be doing getting back to the podcast, doing some non-live content. I'm thinking there's a couple of veins I want to go into. um I'm kind of intrigued by the hip hop reviewers on YouTube. I want to do something that's a different spin on that though. Uh, because I've heard a lot of music and I can't sit up here and pretend like I haven't seen specific films in order to react to them. So what I was thinking about is doing a series where I have some of my old favorite underground hip hop tracks and kind of break down the lyrics to them. And because I can listen to something that's lyrically moving to me and it'd be a brand new experience again. And maybe do something along those lines where I can talk about the bars. And then, I also wanted to get back into, I'm thinking I'm probably going to start out with doing content that's mimic some of the stuff I used to blog on, specifically doing character issues where instead of reviewing comic books, I review the characters and I kind of give them a grade based on that. So I want to get a look at that. I want to do that. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about for the non-live content. Um, and really start building out an audience and seeing what y'all think of that. And of course, I'm going to be including some stuff about being a black parent because the rebrand is Blurting While Dad. And so I want to talk about being a black nerd who's raising kids who are also kind of nerdy themselves and married to a wife that's kind of nerdy herself, and give it kind of do some stuff along that with the wife and kids. So that's the content I got coming up. Oh, wait a minute. I got another comment. I ain't trying to ditch this one. Great point about the niche market. Tyler Perry was a great example, even though I don't like him either. There are only two types of movies for black folks. We have comedies or struggling movies about growing up black. I think directors try to add famous white people so they can get white people to see a movie also. Examples, Selma, right, bombed, and those were black movies. Yep. And here's what I think. Regarding that. So I like that. Okay, so I can extend the conversation a little bit. When we're talking about like let me pull it up. Lorenzo again. Thanks for the comment, bro. Let me show this one more time so y'all can read it while I'm talking. I do think that black creators get typecast a lot of times. We're not able to have we're not able to have general black slice of life movies. We're not able to have straight up black horror movies. We're not allowed to have black comedies that don't have the sprinkle of a lot of hood shit in it, if that makes sense. We've got enough of the Boys in the Hood and Menace to Society type of movies, the coming of age stories. And so I do think that there's so many other black stories that do need to be told. Um, I think the directors, I'll be honest with you, and I know I mentioned it earlier, but I do think, you know, and I know they mentioned it during, especially the one that sticks out in my mind to this day is the Making and Coming to America. And that was a white director who did that one. And they forced him to add Louis Anderson into that movie because they were worried about white audiences. And it was such a nonsensical thing. It didn't make any logical sense whatsoever. There is nobody that's coming to see a movie for Louis Anderson. I am sorry. It doesn't work like that. They're coming to see Eddie Murphy. They weren't coming to see Louis Anderson. And you could have completely erased Louis Anderson's character out of Coming to America and wouldn't have changed the damn thing about the movie. It would have saved probably about maybe 2 or 3 minutes of airtime. But I think that major studios feel like, and understand this, Hollywood studios are still overwhelmingly run by old white dudes. And they are still looking at these films with their own biases. You know, the progressive white dudes who, you know, during the 70s and 80s couldn't find any roles other than witty sidekick or drug dealer with a heart of gold or prostitute with a heart of gold or pimp or whatever. Those uh, people couldn't find any stories to tell about us besides that. You know, the Jeffersons came from the bottom and they made it up there. And George was still funny and still dancing and all the other stuff. Good times. We look at good times. The whole story was struggle. Every time that they would try to find a way out, there was something else pressing them back into it. And that was the entire narrative of the show, to be the good suffering black folks. So yeah, I do agree. I think directors are kind of forced, their hands are forced. They're forced to include non-white characters in there, and I do have a problem with that. I don't like black characters being used as tokens in a movie where they're just there just to be conspicuously black. I don't like that either. So I definitely don't appreciate it when a white character is shoehorned into a black movie either. If you're going to be bold about not writing a story that represents a wider swath of people, don't try to cover it up by shoehorning in random black character or shoehorning in random white character. Spend some time with the characters and make them intriguing. But Selma and Harriet bombed in the, well, the other side was Selma and Harriet weren't exactly good movies. And I know specifically regarding Harriet, there was a lot of derision based on the actress that they cast to play it. I wasn't going to go see that. And I know that's considered a black movie, but I wasn't about to go give my dollars to that actress specifically. What's up, dude? Oh, my son's down here. What's up, man? Yeah, you can get a snack. So, no problem. So, the problem with, and I didn't even watch here. Here's the thing. I get tired of movies, and I understand that there are representations of people struggling and what black people and the oppression black people face. I don't want to see it on film. I'm tired of it. I don't really want to see it. I have fatigue on that. I'm tired of seeing historical movies, like the Emmett Smith or the Emmett Till movie that's dropping, bro, where it's about his mom. I might check it out because it's a unique perspective on the story. I am not looking forward to watching that because I already know the story behind Emmett Till. And it's dark and it's depressing and it's unsettling. And I don't want to see it. And I don't feel like I need to force myself to see unpleasant things to have a understanding or appreciation of them, especially when my entire childhood was being told about these things and being informed about them and reading about them and hearing about them and hearing the firsthand experiences of people involved. I want to hear all that. And so I do think that there's a better lane for black films than just historical movies about how badly we were treated during slavery and during the civil rights era. I would love to see a black movie set in the civil rights era that kind of has a little bit to do with civil rights, but is kind of playing out in the background, and we're talking about how it impacts the characters' lives on a day-to-day basis. I'm more interested in that. That would be an interesting story. A slice of life, maybe set during the civil rights era, that shows it happening in the background, but other things are going on in black life, and that's not the totality of black life. For the people in the movement, that was the totality of their life, but for a lot of other black folks, they would participate in the marches and then go on to live a life around that. I want to see the life around that too. I want to see the relationships around that too. I want to see the arguments that happened between the black folks that was participating in the marches and the black folks that said, I'm not going to. I want to see those kind of conversations play out on film. That's why I liked Us by Jordan Peele. Didn't go into black stereotypes. It's a rare movie that could be us and just focus on the plot, etc. We need more like that. I liked Us because it showed, I agree with you. I liked Us because it showed a black family. And we knew they were black. They knew they were black. But it didn't really need to continue to keep reminding us that they're black. It was dope in that sense. And the horror didn't rely just on scary evil white people out there. It was another kind of horror, and it didn't involve racist ghosts or that kind of stuff. I didn't involve all that. It was a psychological thriller featuring black people in the lead, and like I said, I knew they were black. They knew, the characters knew they were black, but that wasn't all there was to the story. That's why I messed with Us, and I messed with, I messed with the Jordan Peele movies, and not that one that came out not too long ago, with old girl from The Shy. I can't remember, where she was the executive producer, and they had some other brother that actually directed it, and it was about how evil white folks were and up there killing babies. It was just ugh, I don't want to see that stuff. Being black in America can be scary enough. I don't need a horror movie that tells me exactly how scary it is. That's too on the nose. Matter of fact, now I'm curious. I want to look it up because I know I want to give name to the show that I actively avoided. Um, because I looked at it and I'm like, you know what? I ain't finna watch this. Let's see. Wasn't this is where was it? Them. Yeah, them. Um, I wasn't about to watch them, bro. That one was too much for me because I read the synopsis of it. I'm like, nah, bro, I'm good on that. I don't need to see, I already know how racism kills people, and I know how it killed people in the past. I don't need to see it on my TV screen, and I don't need to subject myself to that. That's not scary. It's gross, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. It's gross, and it elicits something that's not fear. It's revulsion. I don't want to see that. So I liked Us because it didn't really focus on that. We got invested in the family and their survival. Basically, I would almost liken it to, I think it was a better movie, but I almost like it to Poltergeist, where we're cheering for the family to survive. And that's what we're focusing on. But it's a black family, and it doesn't really need to emphasize it. It's hard to explain, but I get where you're going with it. And I also like movies that do subverts. I like movies that take stereotypes sometimes and subvert them a little bit. Not where it's so blatant in your face, but where it subverts what you're thinking a little bit, subverts the line of thinking, and causes you to glimpse it anew. I like those kind of films. So I feel you on that one, bro. But yeah, I do think that we get siloed off, especially during Oscar season, bro. Oscar season is wild when it comes to black movies, man. I can always count on there's going to be one Oscar film that's going to be some civil rights thing or some slavery thing, and then we're just gonna have a dearth of movies until spring and summer. This one's gonna win an Oscar, and it's gonna be, there's gonna be about the black folks that had to be, it had to be, it had to be some black folks getting punished or hurt or abused in some way, and somebody stood up for them, and then they ended up getting murdered themselves. And then that's the movie. And it'll win 1,000 Oscars. Or it could be like Green Book, where Green Book kind of tried to do it like this, like, okay, so we're going to take the Green Book for tourists that black folks use to safely navigate the South. And what we're going to do is not include any of the historical context of what made the Green Book, and make it a story about this magical Negro absolving this racist white dude of being racist and learning something about himself along the way. It's those kind of movies that come out during Oscar season that crack me up. So I think Magical Negro falls into that category too, of different of the kind of movies that come out. So we have the struggling movies, the civil rights and slavery movies, and then the Magical Negro movie, where this magical black person, or in this case, magical racist white elf, is going to change the heart and mind of the black person that needs to be educated about love or whatever that Green Book shit was. We see those kind of movies that pop up around Oscar season all the time. And sometimes they win, bro. Sometimes, you got your blind sides that come out, and it's like, we got the magical white woman that's going to teach this black teenager to play football magically. She's going to teach him everything he needs to know. He doesn't know anything. He's inept at the sport that he's been playing since he was younger. So she's going to teach him how to do it. Magical white person or magical Negro. Those are the movies those are the kind of movies that seem to win Oscars. So anyway, I kind of got off on a tangent. I hope that answered your question, bro. But yeah, I think I kind of support Jordan Peele and what his kind of vision of cinema is. I'm gonna ride the train until I get disappointed, because that's how it normally works. So hopefully, and then even after I get disappointed, I'll give him some chances to do something that's not disappointing, because that's how creativity works. Not everything that is created you're going to like, especially with the film franchise or director or actor that you enjoy. You're not going to like everything they do. So I'm excited for what is next for Jordan Peele in terms of horror movies. We'll see what happens, but that's what I got. Like I said, I'm going to be adding different kinds of content on the channel. Shout out to those who popped in and popped out. Let me know if this format is to your liking. I will change some things around next time, and hopefully I'll have some takes on the Matrix joint. I'll take some notes on it. I do want to do probably later on this week. I'm probably going to do something regarding what's going on in WWE, man, because that's an interesting mess. And then I do want to talk about WWE and AEW, and specifically Tony Khan's little response to being challenged on the diversity question. So I might be back at y'all on Thursday with that one around this time. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, please tune in. I'll holler at y'all later. Thanks for tuning in. Blurting While Dad. Peace.